Well, hello and welcome to today's webinar, again titled Describing How Your Project Fights Poverty. My name is Chris Hawks. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer, or RPCV, serving in Belize from 2010 to 12. You will also see my colleague in the VISTA training unit, Stephen Bronskill, monitoring the chat and Q&A throughout the presentation. And I have the pleasure of being joined today by Sarah Gleason, who is a teacher, a trainer, a consultant, and community organizer. Sarah has worked with AmeriCorps members and projects for more than 20 years, and we are super excited to have her today. Thanks so much, Sarah, and welcome.
Hey, thank you, Chris. It's great to be here with you. Like you, I started my national service journey as a Peace Corps volunteer, but I'm coming to you today from my home state of Minnesota, where I directed AmeriCorps Direct Service and VISTA projects way back in the early 2000s. Since then, I've mostly worked myself as a capacity builder with nonprofit, government, and community-based organizations. And I'm also deeply involved in community organizing here in Minnesota. And I even teach a course about community engagement and organizing in a nonprofit leadership program at the University of Denver.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and we'll hear a bit more in just a second. But before, just want to look at our agenda. Now, during our time together, we'll cover information that will help you describe how your VISTA project fights poverty. This webinar is a companion to 4 new e-learning courses on the VISTA campus that explores poverty in the United States. So we encourage you to explore these new courses. We'll share a link in the chat. They were just posted, I believe, last week. So they're very new, and it's not a surprise if you haven't had the time to check them out yet, but we encourage you to do so. And we hope that through the online courses and the content in this webinar, that we'll have the opportunity to learn more about this complex and important topic in the VISTA community. Towards the end of today's webinar, we will invite you to join a breakout room to discuss this with your colleagues in small groups. We appreciate you approaching this conversation with respect for your VISTA colleagues and encourage you to reach out to us after the webinar if you need any support or if you'd like to explore this topic more in depth. Now, in our webinar today, we'll begin by discussing how your organization reduces poverty and your organization's impact on the community. We'll touch on some language considerations to keep in mind as you discuss poverty. Then we will hone in on your VISTA project and how it addresses poverty. And finally, we will talk about your personal role in fighting poverty in terms of the capacity building activities that you do during your VISTA service. We'll finish our time together with a Q&A session, and we hope you will leave with tools to use in your VISTA service. We'll also share a link to the handout that we'll reference and use during today's session. The handout has some key concepts and some links that we'll discuss during the webinar. Hopefully you can access it, but if not, it's totally okay. We'll be sharing it afterwards as well once this recording is posted to the VISTA campus. So great, with that, let's get started, and I will pass it back to Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and everybody. Good to see you all in the chat. If you've joined us today, which you have, or you wouldn't be hearing my voice, it's likely because the mission of AmeriCorps VISTA ignites something in you. Founded in 1964 and integrated into AmeriCorps in 1994, the AmeriCorps VISTA mission, as you know very well, is to alleviate poverty by building capacity for anti-poverty organizations in diverse areas, including education, health, and economic opportunity. Every project, as diverse as they are, is based on the core goals of empowering communities and creating sustainable solutions. Chris mentioned that there is this poverty e-learning course, which most of you have probably not had a chance to look at. But when you do, you will see that it talks about 3 ways we can define poverty. And we know that the experiences of poverty in our communities and among different populations can vary greatly. These 3 aspects of poverty are usually present. I think of them as, different but interconnected kind of faces of poverty, offering different ways to recognize poverty and different avenues for action to reduce poverty. And the beauty is that addressing any one of these faces can often have a positive impact on another or even all three. So we're going to look at them a little bit, starting with adequate income. This first face of poverty is probably the one that folks think of first. It is how our official definitions of poverty generally define poverty. A lack of adequate income could result from a lack of safe and stable jobs or low wages, various barriers to work, or a lack of income supports for people who can't work. Lacking the resources to meet basic needs, like nutritious food, stable housing, or healthcare, this is a second face of poverty. Even when people are employed, the basics that we all need in life can be out of reach. This might be due to local scarcity, high prices, a lack of local access, public policy choices, or other factors. This lack of basic resources has a harmful effect on people's lives in general, and it can also make getting and keeping a job even tougher. And finally, barriers to full participation in society, what we call the third face of poverty here. These barriers can keep people from involvement in economic, social, cultural, or political arenas. When people don't have things like stable internet access or reliable transportation, they can be disconnected from their families, their cultures, their communities, as well as from education, employment, and other opportunities. Combined with the scarcity of time and energy that often results from poverty, these barriers can keep people from having a voice in the future of their own communities as well.
Thanks, Sarah. And now let's take a moment to hear from you about your experiences in your VISTA service. So here, we're going to have a poll question. And when thinking about your organization's mission, which of the following faces of poverty does your organization address based on its mission? So you'll see a poll pop up on your screen, and it's between the three that Sarah just went through, on income, resources, or participation. It could be one, it could be all three. Feel free to enter as one or two or three, and then make sure you hit submit. Sometimes, sometimes we've seen that people miss the submit button at the very, very bottom of Zoom. I'm not sure how we can fix that. Maybe we can get it more highlighted. But I see the responses coming in, and we'll give it another 5 to 10 seconds. Sure, everyone gets a chance to respond. Okay, little drum roll. We'll close it out, and let's take a look at the results. So yeah, Sarah, interesting. What do you see here?
I think unfortunately our intention was that folks be able to choose as many as apply, but it looks like folks can only choose one. So sorry about that, everybody. But what we see here, we've got, almost half of folks having chosen the basic needs resources, and then pretty evenly split between the other two of ability to participate and adequate income. Sorry, everyone. And yes, I see in the chat folks are telling us that really they wanted to choose more than one. And I think that's not unusual and great to hear. All right. So why don't we dive on in, unless Chris has something else. Yeah. So apologize for that, y'all, but good, you're thinking about it, which is the important part, not so much what came out in the poll, but you're thinking about it, because that's what we're going to be working on here today. And we're going to kind of go stepwise. You'll be able to use that worksheet as a place to do some work as we go. And we're going to start with looking first at the work your organization or program does, the organization or program that you support as a VISTA member, to try to answer the key question: how does your organization or program reduce poverty? And when we ask a question like that, to me, we're really asking about your organization or program's theory of change, which is a term that may be familiar to some, maybe not to others. It's worth looking into if you've never heard of it. But organizations that address complex structural issues like poverty do this in lots of different ways, depending on their context, their opportunities, their understanding of the problem. And a theory of change, among other things, a theory of change describes how an organization believes that a particular set of activities leads to a desired outcome. In this case, reducing poverty. Now, ideally, those beliefs are based on data or experience, and they're not just picked out of the wind. But again, this talks about how does a particular set of activities lead to a desired outcome, in our case, reducing poverty. So today you're each putting together kind of your own mini theory of change. It'll be like a concise description of how your VISTA project and you as a capacity builder through your organization that you support fight poverty. This can hopefully help you to more easily connect the dots, even when you're talking with someone who isn't familiar with your organization or with VISTA's poverty fighting mission. So we're going to start with the idea of naming your outcome. Some programs or assignments may have really clear and easy direct links between their activities and their poverty-related outcomes. You know, for example, if you had a program that supports underemployed people in finding well-paying jobs, that has the impact of increasing the income these people earn, which directly addresses that first phase of poverty, the lack of adequate income for those people and their families. Other programs, as you're thinking about yours, you may see that you need an extra link or two to make the connection between the activities and our goal of alleviating poverty. And for example, and we'll talk about this a little bit, programs that work with kids may need to explain how the impact of their activities working with children will reduce the chances of those kids experiencing poverty as adults. So how does your organization alleviate poverty through its activities? The first thing to do is to, label, put a name on the impact of the work that your program or organization does. And remember, impact is the difference your organization makes. As it says on the screen, there's the work you do and the results that flow from it. That's impact. And there can be multiple layers or levels of impact from those activities. So, for example, back to the kids, your program might provide after-school tutoring. That's the work you do. The intended result might be different, but let's just say that the intended result that flows from those activities, the impact, is that students succeed in school. I love seeing in the chat that folks are already like doing this work. Thank you. So if your impact was students succeed in school, now you need to make the tie. That impact doesn't directly address poverty in itself. So you need to take one step further. In this case, for example, you might say that success in school increases kids' chances of earning an adequate income and their ability to participate in society. And there is data that you could put behind that. All right. So here's an example. As I said, sometimes it can feel difficult depending on your assignment, your organization, your program, to establish the link. So this example, Eileen, we're going to see Eileen a couple of times here. Eileen is an AmeriCorps VISTA member serving with the California Overdose Prevention Network. Eileen serves at a community coalition within that network that aims to reduce overdose and addiction through education, policy change, and advocacy. So the immediate impact of their activities is to reduce overdose and addiction. In the process, the work of the coalition addresses poverty by promoting healthier communities, which increase people's ability to participate in society and to address the underlying issues that lead to poverty. And just a note here, we are mostly focusing on content today, but it is also important to pay attention to the language you use as you talk about your activities and your service community. So we are suggesting to keep a few things in mind. I would to consider on the next screen using language that's asset-based, people first, prioritizing societal responsibilities over individual blame. For example, you may want to say people with disabilities instead of the disabled, or people who are unhoused or experiencing homelessness instead of homeless people. It's important to consider the biases and implications that can be found in our descriptions of groups of people. Use language that's jargon-free as best as we can. We all get immersed in our field and organization's jargon, but try to make it easy to understand for people outside of your organization's field and avoid complex terminology. For example, I serve at a 501c3 only makes sense if you know what 501c3 means, which you may or may not. You could simplify this to simply say, I serve at a nonprofit organization. Use an active voice as much as you can. This emphasizes the impact of your organization or program, and it's clearer to the listener. For example, the sentence, over 60 local homes have had essential repairs done by our organization, is passive. You could say the same thing while highlighting your organization's impact with, our organization completed essential repairs on over 60 local homes, which is active. And finally, use short, clear phrasing as best you can. It'll make your description more powerful and help others who are less familiar with your organization follow what you're saying. And I continue to love folks putting stuff in the chat here as you're working through it.
Thanks, Sarah. Now, building off the examples and the language consideration that Sarah was just discussing, we're going to turn to the handout and apply this to your organization. So Christina just dropped a link to the handout in the chat in case you didn't have it, grab it beforehand. And once you've pulled out your handout, we just want to take you a moment to complete this sentence. My organization addresses poverty by blank. Now on the handout, there is space on page 2 to answer this. If you don't have access to the handout, totally okay. You can, you can do this activity in your phone notes app, on a scratch piece of paper, or just by thinking through it on how your organization addresses poverty. So we'll give you a moment to do this and come back in just a moment.
I know it's wrong, but it feels so...
Shake a leg, the brainstorm's kicking off in the boardroom.
maybe we'll give it another 15 to 20 seconds get started. Please feel free to send it into the chat, but we'll give it another 20 seconds or so. Okay, we'll close it out. And again, if you wrapped up or you're still, thinking on this, that's totally okay. And but if you wrapped up, feel free to share in the chat. See a couple of comments here and there. They're starting to pop in. And Sarah, I will pass it to you.
Okay, and I know a number of folks have put things in the chat previously. There's a few popping in here about my organization fights poverty by, and we name some activities and how that impacts poverty, active participation in workforce and society, access programs. Okay. Yeah, I think it's coming through for folks. This is good. We're gonna keep on rolling through this. If you haven't had time to, okay, folks are getting it in the chat. There we go. Promoting economic growth and sustainability. And then, I think we can talk about how that connects directly to impacting poverty pretty easily. I'm sorry, reading is terrible. I love that. Okay, one-on-one personalized career coaching to help them find stable jobs with upward mobility. That's a pretty direct on that first phase of poverty. Okay, so a number of folks here are really addressing that first phase. Others I see really it's more about the resources and also about the ability to participate in society. So we're kind of hitting on all three phases here, which is great. So yeah, hopefully most of you were able to get, somewhere, and some of you came in with clarity already. We want to take this sort of to the next piece of it, which is, because this is focused on the organization or program that you're supporting through your VISTA service. Now we want to look at how your VISTA project itself fits into the picture. As I said earlier, the role of AmeriCorps VISTA is to help local organizations expand their capacity to make change, in this case, in regard to poverty. So the question for you here on this next level is, how does your VISTA project enhance or expand your organization's ability to fight poverty? And we're going to walk through a couple quick examples. I do just want to name that these examples won't capture the full range of VISTA projects, but they may help you relate to your service, relate your service to the different approaches to fighting poverty. We know that projects are incredibly diverse and include a wide variety of approaches. And though we're talking about nonprofit in some of these places, it could be a government organization, educational organization. You do the math. So let's look at the basic thing here about a VISTA project example. We're going to start back with Eileen, who we talked about that her VISTA project is focused on the expansion of a community coalition through this California Overdose Prevention Network. She's placed at this local coalition that connects people with substance use disorder to harm reduction and recovery resources and raises awareness about overdose prevention and stigma. And as we noted earlier, the coalition where she serves fights poverty by reducing addiction and overdose and their harmful community effects, improving people's ability to participate in society. So that's the impact of the organization's work and how it fights poverty. So now, Eileen's VISTA project is to build capacity at this local coalition that's part of the California Overdose Prevention Network. This increased capacity aids the fight against poverty by allowing the coalition to expand its services and reach, helping more people participate in society and reducing the negative community impacts of addiction. So in this case, this VISTA project really is about expanding reach. And we're going to show a quick video here of an AmeriCorps VISTA member discussing a different project and its impact. So let's listen to Jan and how they describe it.
My name is Jan and I am an AmeriCorps member serving in Mississippi. My day includes strengthening partnerships with local food pantries on behalf of the University of Mississippi. We supply food and other essential items to students and surrounding communities. Choose AmeriCorps.
All right, so I'm going to ask folks if something jumped out at you, what stood out for you, and put it in the chat for us. Well, I just named that Jan's VISTA project fights poverty by building their organization's capacity to supply food and other essentials to the community. So the VISTA project does this by strengthening partnerships with local food pantries, and as a result, community members have more reliable access to basic resources. Yeah, I see strengthening partnerships is maybe a key. All right, and community. Beautiful. All right, we're gonna move to, I think, you and your handouts.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah, and thanks for those in the chat, Rachel and Kelsey. Exactly, the strengthening partnerships, perfect response. And now we're going to go back to the handouts, or your scratch sheet of paper, to write a few sentences responding to the following questions. How does your project help further your organization's anti-poverty work? So how does your project enable, enhance, or expand the work that your organization or program does? In other words, how does your project fit into the larger mission of your organization and the mission of AmeriCorps VISTA? Now, we understand that as VISTA services is diverse, so is the structure of your projects, as Sarah was just talking about earlier as well. Some of you may be serving in projects where the project is essentially the same as the organization, and others may be in situations where your project fits into a larger organizational structure. Some also working in public agencies and others working with intermediaries. So we know it's a wide range. But yeah, whichever situation you are in, just use this time. We'll spend, a short moment, maybe not quite as long, but a short moment here to think about how your project connects to the larger mission. If you finish, again, this is on page 2 of the handout. Please, again, feel free to share in the chat, and we'll come back in just a moment. Thanks so much, everyone. And a couple of responses in the chat. And again, if you're mid-typing, please feel free to keep those coming. Thanks for your participation there. And now that you have grounded yourself in your project's work, so looking specifically at the project now, we're going to actually dive a little deeper into how your VISTA role fits into the equation. So I'll pass it to Sarah to continue on that.
Yeah, and I think we can just move to the next slide, where we're going to talk about capacity building, because that is your role as an AmeriCorps VISTA member, building capacity. The Council of Nonprofits says, while often overlooked capacity building develops the all-important infrastructure that supports and shapes charitable nonprofits into forces for good. Capacity building enables nonprofit organizations and their leaders to develop competencies and skills that can make them more effective and sustainable, thus increasing the potential for charitable nonprofits to enrich lives and solve society's most intractable problems. And the same could be said for any kind of organization working for the common good. By focusing on strengthening the foundational aspects of your organization's operations, you as an AmeriCorps VISTA member play an important role in increasing the impact of the organization. This strategic improvement ensures that the organization can move beyond addressing immediate needs and helps lay the groundwork for bigger steps in the battle against poverty. And when we talk about capacity building, we use this blanket term that can actually look like many different things in practice. So here let's talk about different types of capacity building. Your specific VISTA tasks may or may not fit neatly into one of these boxes, but understanding the diversity and reach of capacity building will help us describe VISTA service better. So human capacity, that's improving skills and abilities of the people in the organization, providing training, education, and skill building programs for employees, volunteers, and other stakeholders in the organization. That all falls under this category. Organizational capacity building involves improving systems and processes and structures to enhance overall effectiveness. And structural capacity focuses on the physical infrastructure and information technology of an organization, where upgrading or providing facilities, equipment, and technology, that's in this category. And finally, material capacity. That ensures that resources, whether like financial, material, or other, are available to support the mission. And that involves things like fundraising and resource allocation support and volunteer recruitment. So putting this together, I want you to reflect on these three questions. What is your primary role? What kind of capacity do you build? And how does it help further your organization's impact? So we're going to share real quick a couple of examples from common VISTA service roles that you'll find on your worksheet, and then look quickly at a couple examples where it might be more challenging to connect the dots between your role and the impact. So many of you serve in roles like data coordinators, creating tools to collect and analyze data, helping your organization make decisions with better information. Some may be volunteer coordinators, and your service could include surveying your current volunteers to understand their interests and strengths. Others may be serving in fundraising, creating a system to track fundraising metrics, allowing your organization to understand donation trends, identifying strategies for recruiting new donors. And some may be in outreach, doing things like developing marketing materials and creating community partnerships. So you remember Eileen. Eileen may describe her role by stating, through the California Overdose Prevention Network, my role is to build coalition capacity by improving community engagement, expanding information infrastructure, and identifying new areas for intervention. And one last quick video. Let's listen to Justine and how they describe their role.
My role as an AmeriCorps VISTA member at Waipahu High School is to increase our participation in early college or other college opportunities by our underrepresented populations, which include Pacific Islanders, Native Hawaiians, English language learners, and other underrepresented populations. So the challenges that some of these populations experience is that they don't have information about how to pursue early college or college opportunities. So my position is kind of encouraging them, introducing the different resources available to them, and actually working one-on-one to help them apply for early college and other college opportunities. I am from Waipahu, and I did attend Waipahu High School, so I've been giving back to my community in this way.
Yeah, so Justine's VISTA project involves increasing students from underrepresented groups' participation in their early college program. And this is fighting poverty because it prepares students to attend college, and college graduates are more likely to learn and earn an adequate income. Okay. So let's, put the pieces together here. We want your main takeaway here to be the idea that your service is part of a greater mission to fight poverty in the US, and that when you describe it, you can zoom in from that big picture of the AmeriCorps VISTA program to your program or organization, to your VISTA project, and to your role. You can take the audience and their background knowledge into account as you do this, and you can tailor the level of detail you share depending on who they are and whether you're on an elevator or not.
Thanks, Sarah. Now that we've explored some of the examples that Sarah shared, and you all have tried your hand at describing how your VISTA project and your service fight poverty, we're gonna take a moment to hear from you again about what is most challenging in doing this. So we have a chat question here, just directly to the chat. We're gonna ask, what is the biggest challenge for you in speaking about how your service contributes to eliminating poverty in the US? So we'll give you just a moment to share your thoughts. It won't take too long on this, but we'll give it a good 30 seconds or so. Thanks, everyone. Seeing the responses come in, seeing a few more come now. I love it. Carrie saying being succinct. Sometimes, very difficult. Helping people understand that the goal is eliminating poverty, not just providing support for people who are impoverished. Thanks, Tiara. Yeah, it's a great response. Getting more resources. Yeah, and I'm starting to see it's starting to go fast. Yeah, a bunch coming in now. Yeah, Sarah, any pop out to you? I'm kind of scrolling through it. I know it's going fast.
Well, I really appreciated one of the early ones about helping folks understand that it's about eliminating poverty, not just, making it easier for people living in poverty.
Yeah, agreed. Nathan, on the answering difficult follow-up questions. Yes, Nathan, absolutely. Not being able to see some of the results now. Yes, absolutely. It's difficult. It's difficult. These are great. Please keep these coming. And actually, I think these difficulties and this topic could also play into our breakout rooms as well, where you can discuss with your colleagues. So thank you for participating in our chat question. Next up, and before we get to those breakout groups, we do have a review question. We have a little scenario here. We want to know which of the following is the most effective description of how a VISTA member service contributes to reducing poverty. So we have a poll. I know the response options are a little long, so we'll give you a moment just to read through it. The response options are on the screen. I will read it aloud as well. So you have Chandra for the first option. Chandra makes recommendations for strategic programmatic action at a 501c3 organization providing healthy foods to under-resourced neighborhoods. Second option, Mark surveys community members about their experiences using educational services. Third option, Willow serves at an organization that fights poverty through tutoring. And then finally, Marina coordinates a marketing strategy to let community members know about a free program teaching job-specific skills that they can use to gain employment. So you can see the responses starting to come in. Still quite a few remain. I know the responses kind of a mouthful there, so you might take some time to read through them and analyze, and that's appreciated. We'll give it another 10 seconds or so. Looks like a little more than half have responded. Okay, let's give it a little drum roll. I want to make sure everyone who can respond does. Some coming through. Okay, let's close out the poll and just see how you did. So thanks so much for your participation there. Great job, everyone. And wow, that's really great. 75% got that correct. The correct answer here is D. Great job. Now, Marina coordinates a marketing strategy to let community members know about a free program teaching job-specific skills that they can use to gain employment. Now, while some of the other options do include details about VISTA member service and how it contributes to reducing poverty, option D here, it really is the most clear. It's the most, and it's jargon-free in the answer. It doesn't, include that 501c3 that some people may not be aware of. And it provides the most direct details about the VISTA members' role and its impact. Kind of a tough one there, but y'all did great. Thanks so much for your participation. And just looking back, and we've discussed how your organization reduces poverty and its impact, language considerations to make when discussing poverty, how your VISTA project specifically fights poverty, and then your individual role in fighting poverty. We're about to move to a breakout room activity to finish up our session. We want to give you a chance to speak with your colleagues and discuss about this. So momentarily, you will be placed in a breakout room to collaborate and share how your VISTA project fights poverty. And stick around after the breakout because we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A and a wrap up to the session. Now, we recommend using your handout in the breakout rooms if you've been using that, or your scratch sheet of paper, your notes app, to draft and share your description of how you and your VISTA project fight poverty. If you prefer to just discuss without writing, totally okay, that's fine. The handout is really an optional tool. It's really there just to support you if needed. It may be helpful to think about zooming in from the overarching AmeriCorps mission to your specific role. So think about that. When you get to your breakout rooms, introduce yourself, your project, and then describe how your VISTA project fights poverty. And we'll give it about, a solid 10 minutes. If for any reason, sometimes odd things happen when broken out into the rooms, some people may leave and you might be left by yourself. Don't fret, we'll get you in, we'll merge you into another room. Or, if you don't hear anything, use the raise hand feature and we'll reach out to you to contact you. So with that, let's get to the breakout rooms.
All right, it looks like everyone's in the room and doing their thing, and it's just the four of us for the moment.
Do we want to pause the recording, or will then we need to remember to put it back on? So maybe better to leave it on.
That is always the question. I'll pause the recording.
You are
Okay, looks like we're having everyone back. Welcome back. Hope everyone had some great conversations in the breakout rooms. And I know we're running out of time. We're gonna wrap things up. Just had a few extra things I wanted to mention. First, if you would like to learn more, there are some tools we recommend you for further study here. These resources can also be found at the very bottom of today's handout. In addition to, of course, the 4 new e-courses that are on the VISTA campus that we mentioned, there's a link at the bottom of the handout. And again, if you don't have the handout, totally okay. I'll follow up with that tomorrow. And we'd like to just quickly shift gears to ask that you offer your feedback on this webinar. Your input is very valuable. We want to know, what worked, what didn't, what can be improved for future versions of this. So I already see a comment in the chat that the breakout was too short. Let us know in the evals, please let us know, and maybe that's something we can work to improve on next time. And I know it's always great to speak with your colleagues, so we totally get it. So the survey there's a link in the chat to the survey that Christina just shared. So please feel free to fill that out, and thank you in advance for your feedback. Given the time, we don't have a long time for Q&A, and actually there were only one question in the Q&A, and it was if we're recording this. Yes, we are recording this. Yes, we are going to post this to the campus, and tomorrow we will email, once this is posted to the campus, we will email that out along with the handout as well. And you can check out the 4 new e-courses as well. We'll reference that in the email tomorrow. So please be on the lookout for that. And if you do have any questions and just didn't get a chance to ask here in the Q&A, definitely send us an email, vistatraining@americorps.gov. I'll drop that in the chat right now, and we can follow up with you. So just closing out, friendly reminder that this is recording and we'll post it to the campus. Once you are logged in, just click catalog where you see the red square pop up on this next screen. That will bring you to all the learning paths. So this one will be posted under the Understanding Poverty in the U.S. learning path, where those 4 e-courses are located as well. So you can search for this or filter by members. If it's your first time accessing that learning path, you'll just have to enroll and join it, which is a couple of quick steps. But after you've joined it, you can view the recorded webinars and the e-courses that are available. So thank you so much for your participation today, for attending today. We hope that you can join us for our next webinar, Understanding and Using Non-Competitive Eligibility, or NCE, on Wednesday, May 22nd. The webinar will be at the same time that this one took place, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can register for that May webinar now if you'd like, and view upcoming events on the VISTA campus calendar. So again, there's just a link to the calendar at the top of the VISTA campus from the main menu. A blue or green dot will indicate an event for that day, and if you click on May 22nd, you'll see the description of the webinar appear below it with a link to register for the webinar. So we'll also reference that in our follow-up email tomorrow, and we hope to see you there next month. But thank you so much for your participation today, and thank you for your service as a VISTA member and your fight against poverty. This will conclude our webinar. So if you don't have, a pending question, if you do, feel free to shoot it over to us, and we'll try to respond as soon as we can. But otherwise, feel free to disconnect. But thank you again for your service, and we look forward to seeing you soon.